this is where I noticed. I've been interpreting professionally for over 17 years now, and I can tell very quickly. I mean, I know I look like 20. Don't worry. um, I've been
You said you
interpreting
were
professionally
41,
for
right?
yeah. I'm 41. I've been interpreting for 17 years, and I can tell a lot about where someone trained, how someone trained, who trained them, because some of my colleagues, especially a lot who've been around the institutional world or who were trained, pre-2000s, it's common to hear things like talk about professional detachment, neutrality, objectivity. Especially, but when you get to interpreters who are more in the commercial world, there's a brilliant Canadian interpreter called Mike LeMay,
He was
and
a guest on
Mike,
our podcast.
yeah, Mike is just brilliant because Mike is just Mike. And there is something about that kind of interpreter where, I mean, Mike came in from the side as well, but about that kind of interpreter who's used to the commercial world, who's used to the artsy speakers or the over the top speakers, who no one has to say to them, it's important to feel what the speaker's feeling, because they're like, yeah, I do it all the time, it's fine. There's an it's that's the deal.
That's his market. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
as far as I know. I mean, I worked with him only a few times, and he's naturally like that. And it would be counterintuitive or outside of his nature if you had to pull him away. And I don't think his performance would be that good
No.
if he actually had to not be himself, because he
So
has this flamboyant personality.
and that's what you do. So like I tell people I used to build interpreting teams. I don't really do that anymore because I found I wasn't suited to it. But if I got an assignment and there was super technical, I had interpreters who I would call right away. I wouldn't call them for a really artsy sales meeting or a really flamboyant speaker, because some interpreters have no natural flamboyance. But the technical stuff, they just, one of my,
You're so
the,
polite.
no, but that's not who they are. Like, if you put them in a technical meeting, I remember two interpreters almost made me cry when they were interpreting a speech on demolition. And I'm like, it's a speech on demolition.
It depends what was being demolished.
Yeah. But they delivered it with such beauty and grace and flair, and it was brilliantly done. So my professional association, the Institute of Translation and Interpreting, gives out prizes every 2 years, at least I think every year now, for best performance on an interpreting assignment. And I was like, I'm nominating you. They got like a commendation from the people. I'm like, I've never heard interpreting of that quality in such a technical speech. There was a bit of emotion in the speech, but I'd never heard interpreting at that level where they'd taken a technical speech with some emotion in it and they had delivered it brilliantly. And I was like, I don't know how you did that, but if I could bottle what you did, I could double my fees. And it's when you hear, everyone knows when you hear a colleague and you take your headphones off and you go, right, I quit. Because they're just so good.
Yeah.
I don't know what you did. I don't know how you did it. But just have my headphones.
Yeah.
But that's just, but it is this thing of you have to know your market. And I tell people I love the flamboyant stuff. I can do the technical stuff. I can do the European Works Councils. It's just not my natural place. Put me in a church, give me an artsy speaker, give me something public facing or kind of with a bit where you have to have a bit of flair. I'm all good.
Yeah, but there's the quality of the speaker. Do you understand the topic? And then there's your performance. So if you don't understand what is being said, you can maybe try to fake it if you understand the topic. But if you don't understand the topic and you don't understand the speaker, then you're screwed.
God bless whoever's editing this. but have you ever had? I had one or two speakers in my career where I wasn't convinced they actually knew what they were saying.
It happens all the time.
And I say to people, when I was starting out, every interpreter's got fears. When I was starting out, I was really scared of a speech with a really technical topic. I was really scared of fast speakers, and I was really scared of whenever there was a bit on the agenda that said report, as a new interpreter, that always scared me a bit. Whereas now what scares me, a speech on the agenda that has 4 nouns back to back, or 7 occurrences of the French word de in the same sentence. A speaker who says the immortal words, "I'd like to begin with a joke."
Oh, yes.
What was the other one? The other one that scares me is whenever a client says on the brief, "It's okay, you don't need to worry, it's going to be straightforward."
Mm.
I know then just to put the paracetamol on my desk.
How about hello interpreters, don't worry, I will not try to speak fast.
Or the other one I once did. So I once did a job that was arranged by the UN, and there was a mix of in-person and remote speakers, which was totally fine. I mean, most of the speakers were marvelous, and it was a pleasure to do. And if you're that client, by the way, I love you. Please send me more work. but one of the speakers had decided that the best way to deliver his plenary to this UN arranged thing, I should say, was to use his Apple AirPods as his microphone.
That's one thing I fear that is it.
Yeah.
He looked like he looked a bit like a cyborg, but he sounded like a Dalek. Like if you ever seen like Doctor Who with the Daleks exterminate, he sounded like that, and I'm like, dude, no. He's like talking to all these people from all around the world. So I don't have AirPods. At one point, I'm going to make myself a fake pair of AirPods, and I'm going to do that sketch that we're all waiting for, which is the difference between what you look like and what you sound like. Because, I mean, the only thing that could have been worse is if he'd used the built-in microphone of his laptop.
Oh, yeah.
Which every remote interpreter has had that person who says, oh, the other thing that scares me as an interpreter is when the president or chair of the session says, does anyone have any questions? It's not too bad until someone says, well, it's really more of a comment than a question. And then, as an interpreter, then what I do is I tell you how to cope when someone says more of a comment than a question. I make sure I've got a bit of lag. I go on what's happened. I say to my booth mate, do you want to do a handover?
You can finish this one off.
The art of interpreting is knowing, I'm sure I'm not the only interpreter to see like finance talks on the agenda and go, I think I may be having a toilet break when that one's. I have a booth mate here in Edinburgh who enjoys finance talks. And so we just arrange the agenda so they land on her shift. And I sit going, I'm going to be playing on my phone for the entire. But if you're an interpreter and you love finance talks, I want to work with you.
I do,
but
actually.
Bear in mind, I can feed you some numbers, but I'll probably be eating pastry during most of the talk and staring into space.
I love finance stuff. I mean, it's all about the economy. I learn a lot, like the stocks and all of that. And I don't want to say I'm getting inside information about anything, but I know why my investments are either up or down. And that is super important. I learn a lot.
I got an accountant.
The economy is everywhere. It's like water. It infiltrates everything.
He's just volunteered for all the. So if you're an economics client, you know who to go for. But it's when I got an accountant. So whenever I have to do an accounting speech, the word environ becomes my favorite word because I use it so often. But I had this one accountant once when I had to do the finance speech. And he's the only accountant I've ever come across who quoted the figures to the nearest euro cent. And I'm like, who does that? And I'm like, numbers are... So my thing about numbers is I can do numbers, but I was once doing a France-Scotland rugby under 21 match. And it was 69-13 to France with 5 minutes to go. And Canadians might not get this joke, but interpreters from France will get it. I'd been allowed to stay inside because it was cold, rainy and wet. And I said, I need to keep my voice warmed up. So I got to stay in the analysis suite with all the analysts. And It's 69-13 to France with 5 minutes to go. And I say to one of the analysts, "Oh, I really hope France don't score again." And he said, "Oh, are you worried about the kind of Scottish team's mindset and that will be humiliating?" I said, "No, it's just French numbers over 69 are really hard to say quickly."